Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for your patience. My name is Norelle Doan, and I am the Director of Marketing for Viking Pure Solutions. And today I'm speaking with Michael Morris from Willow Ridge Senior Living about sustainable scaling and smart growth strategies for senior living leaders. Before we get going with our questions today, I did want to point out that we will be taking questions. If you'd like to ask them on the right-hand side in the Q&A section, feel free to put your questions in there or in the comment section in the chat, and we will hopefully get to those at the end. So to get started, Michael, would you mind introducing yourself?
Thanks, Norelle. My name is Mike Morris, and I'm the founder and CEO of Willow Ridge Senior Living, based in Albany, New York.
So first question today, let's talk about the biggest challenges. Let's just get right into, the nitty gritty. What are the biggest challenges that senior living communities face when they're trying to scale responsibly?
Yeah, so Willow Ridge focuses primarily on operationally distressed acquisitions. So many of the challenges that come to us come in the form of struggling census, staffing challenges, heightened expenses, and all of the associated metrics that you would find in an operationally distressed building. So traditionally, when we acquire a community and we transition operations, we'll find a lot of staffing turnover. We'll find, struggling lead generation, not enough inquiries coming in to sustain occupancy. So a lot of those challenges have been very visible to us, especially in the first 3 to 6 months after acquisition. And from a scaling perspective at our management company level, I think a lot of our internal struggles are related to growing at a very fast pace and staffing turnover and building a culture that is supportive of significant growth. And where we have done really well is scaling the team prior to the new acquisitions coming aboard. So we have enough infrastructure in place to successfully transition the buildings that we are acquiring. So a lot of preparation goes into the building of that infrastructure. In some cases, we're taking on staffing in advance of an acquisition just to make sure we're adequately prepared. And that comes with its own set of challenges. And then for those employees who have been with us for many years, a lot of our goals are based around keeping internal promotions and getting those same staff members the ability to grow with the organization. And doing that and keeping them engaged is definitely our highest priority.
Gotcha. And I know turnover is, it's major for every industry, but I feel like for senior living, it's an especial pain point and struggle. So that's great that you have that model to really kind of grow from within. As a senior living operator, how do you balance that growth with maintaining high quality resident care and services across, 18 plus communities?
Yeah, I think discipline on our acquisition criteria is really important. We've had a lot of opportunities come in our direction recently in which we have collectively decided with Dan from Cougar Capital to pass on. And I think remaining disciplined on those acquisition criteria is very important because we're continuing to deliver on what we've set out to do, and that's to deliver high resident quality care, staffing engagement, and then also returns for our investors. And when we're able to deliver on all three, we are able to keep up with that sustainable growth. But having the discipline to look at opportunities and decide collectively amongst all parties that it's either an opportunity worth pursuing or one that's not worth pursuing. And if we're not able to feel 100% confident in these new acquisitions, stepping in and being able to deliver, then it's important for us to have the discipline to say no. And we have sort of an internal committee where we kind of go through all of those metrics and decide if it is in some cases worth pursuing and if it is an opportunity that we would pass on. And I think we've done a really good job recently on exercising that discipline. we were looking at a community out of state, and a visit prompted an internal discussion where it was decided that we would go in a different direction. And I think that's an important part of our story, that we are growing very fast, but we're also very mindful of being able to deliver on all of what you mentioned: resident care, employee satisfaction, investor returns, and not putting too much strain on the operation, so we can focus on where we are making strong impact.
Awesome. Yeah. I think one of those impact areas that we specialize in with senior living is maintaining a safe and healthy environment. And I think that becomes especially more critical as you're growing and scaling. And for us, the non-toxic, environmentally friendly cleaning solutions like ours can support those kind of priority areas of resident well-being and also the operational efficiency side of things. So being that our solutions are made with just salt, water, and electricity, no harmful chemicals, that means that they're not going to cause harm to the residents or team members in those spaces. And then also, particularly with our disinfecting solution, those kind of the cleaning and disinfecting solutions helping with infection prevention, so that you're creating a safer space, you're minimizing the spread of viruses and pathogens. And then also just the factor of the disinfectant being hypochlorous acid based, which is found in our own human bodies as a defense against viruses and invading pathogens, that enables this disinfectant to penetrate and destroy those pathogens on surfaces as well. But also on the operational efficiency side of things, I think it's important to mention that being that these solutions are made on site in Willow Ridge communities and other senior living communities around the US, that on-site capability allows you guys to produce unlimited quantities, ready to use, and your housekeeping team is also, protecting themselves because they're not needing to mix or dilute chemicals, and they're just, using two as opposed to a dozen or more for different uses around the community. So it creates a much more streamlined and standardized kind of chemical inventory for sustainable growth in the kind of housekeeping side of things.
Yeah, I was going to say I can share a quick story on Viking Pier. We had a fire in one of our communities a few weeks ago where there was a chemical combustion between an ammonia and another chemical, and it actually was not in the dryer, so there was no we didn't need to replace the large equipment or anything, but we used Viking Pier as part of our plan of correction with the Department of Health, and how are we going to prevent such an event from occurring again in the future. And it's important to us aligning with the environmentally friendly solution, certainly of Viking Pier, but the ease of implementation I think is important. Cost effectiveness, and it aligns really well with our scale. We're a very lean operator. We focus primarily on cost containment, labor restructuring, and keeping costs low to improve profitability on operationally distressed assets. So really nice fold into our mix, and being able to kind of kill two birds with one stone, keep costs down, environmentally friendly, resident safe. I think you read about those lawsuits with residents who ingest chemicals, and it feels really good to not reduce the worry of something like that happening in our building. So
absolutely. What are some other operational efficiencies that have been most impactful in supporting Willow Ridge's growth while maintaining resident satisfaction?
I think labor restructuring is probably our sort of meat and potatoes of our acquisition implementation. So we again are very agile, and we being geographically focused predominantly in Western New York, but as we're continuing to scale, we're finding some efficiencies within our geographics, and then being able to kind of cluster communities together, find internal efficiencies within labor. I came from the dining side of the industry early on in my career, and I knew some of the expectations that I had back then with cooking as a dining director and being really hands-on within the kitchen. And we sort of adopt that same mindset here as we're growing and making sure that our department heads are very close to the residents. Our activities directors are actually, facilitating activities and not just, hiring entertainers to come in and doing a lot of their job for them. So we run a very lean, a very lean labor model. But what we found is that resident satisfaction as a result of that lean labor model actually improves because our department heads who are hired to do these respective positions are closer to our residents and making that immediate impact. So I think labor restructuring is certainly where we found the most success, and separately cost containment, keeping our expenses low. We are not the highest end product in most of the markets in which we serve. We tend to fall more on the middle market product type. So we're not going to have the fancy chandeliers and all of the bells and whistles of all of the different add-on dues and subscriptions that you see in some other operators' profit and loss statements. But what we can deliver on is our quality of care, resident satisfaction, employee satisfaction, things that are most important to us. So we do step in, and it is a very for those communities who have transitioned into Willow Ridge, it's usually a reason why we are assigned to specific buildings. They were either in a time of struggle, occupancy might be down, they could be going through a number of different issues, and we step into an assignment when things aren't going great, and our job is to turn it around. So a lot of times it is a pulling all levers. It could be from an expense side, could be labor, could be occupancy. Rare cases, it's all three, and we really try to deliver on those three key areas.
Gotcha. You spoke on this a little bit earlier, the discipline of saying no, but how can senior living operators align with investors, like your relationship with Cougar Capital, to ensure long-term success without compromising care quality? And kind of as a follow-up to that, when and why would you say no?
Yeah, I think that our relationship with Cougar Capital is a really good example of owner operator alignment, in that their mindset is very property focused, and our mindset is very operationally focused. And what I really admire about our relationship is they really allow us to make the operational decisions and drive and do what we do best, and drive performance from and by leveraging our experience. And with their expertise on the property side of things and the real estate acquisition, they are far advanced and more experienced than we are, certainly. And I think the combination is exciting, and they allow us to really drive the operational side of the business and leverage the experience that I have with amongst our team to make those decisions. We have had some experience with other ownership groups where they may get very granular, down to going through with a fine-tooth comb the expense statement with these how many boxes of rubber gloves did you buy last month, and they're very granular, and we don't have that level of relationship. We have a very supportive relationship with Cougar Capital, and they allow us to run and leverage our experience, and it's wonderful. I think the participation in in a successful project is equally as important. And, not to get into the specifics of how that's structured, but we have an incentive to make sure that these buildings are doing well from a financial perspective. And you see time and time again, all the opportunities we're looking at where operators are focused on one thing, and that's top line revenue for their 5% management fee. And we try to differentiate ourselves from that mindset, because the long-term appreciation of value is ultimately good for us. It's good for the residents. It's good for the investors, certainly good for sustainability and continuity of care. And that's what I think keeps us aligned.
Yeah, that balance, but then also that long-term vision sounds like is really key.
Yeah.
I think one challenge in senior living growth is, balancing again that those operational costs with sustainability, and that long-term vision, as we were just speaking about. And that's one thing that I think is really important about or beneficial about Viking Piers offering, helping these communities reduce their long-term costs, and while not getting rid of those high standards for cleanliness, infection prevention, and overall safety for the residents and also the team members. Um, so, for those listening, senior living communities that are not using Viking Pure and are probably using a myriad of different chemicals, having them shipped to their facility. Some of those chemicals might be concentrated, some may be ready to use in single use, plastic packaging. Those costs are going to fluctuate based off of what's available, what the market's like, shipping costs, and that sort of thing. And there's a lot of variability there. And that's also not very environmentally conscious. One thing that our customers see is they're, paying a set amount each month to lease a generator. They can produce as much as they need. There's no change to cost. They're also not shipping chemicals, so there's a significant chunk of emissions from transportation of those chemicals that's gone. You're also not paying to dump or recycle that packaging, which may have harmful residues on it. And then the packaging, or sorry, the bottles the application devices that you're using are recyclable and using, ready to use solutions directly from the generators. There's also a long tail cost that I wanted to mention too, that we're helping with because housekeeping team members are not using harsh chemicals. There's also fewer lost work days due to illness from exposure. And because they're using solutions that work better in general for killing viruses and pathogens, there's fewer sick days for the team and fewer periods where you're needing to pay overtime to fight an outbreak among residents. So there's a lot more than just the flat costs of chemicals to consider when we're talking about this kind of long-term balance of operational costs, but then also like sustainability from environmental perspective, as well as from a business perspective.
Sure.
How has the Viking Pure relationship, how has implementing non-toxic, environmentally friendly cleaning solutions impacted resident health and overall community satisfaction on the kind of wellness side of things for Willow Ridge communities?
I think it's gone really well. I know we met Dan Lawson at the Think Tank event in 2023, and it wasn't until maybe a year or so after that we really began conversations about implementing Viking Pure into our communities. And I know we really are still sort of like mid-implementation, but from the trial project that we did, the feedback was really, really positive. I know even here in our corporate office, we had some carpet stains that were able to be removed as a result of using Viking Pure, where other solutions hadn't seemed to be effective. And I know one of the questions that we really had was around like effectiveness and if this environmentally product that on the surface seems very great, but how effective is it really going to be? And I know from my experience, it's been very positive. And I think the thing that's really worth noting is the relationship, certainly that I have with Dan, and that it's a vendor relationship that I put a lot of time into, and he's certainly been reciprocal with that, and we formed a friendship, and I think that that's great. And that's exactly what we like to pride ourselves on: working with our vendors, working with our partners at all levels, and that I think is where the strength of the partnership really comes down, is certainly with the principal being as active and involved. He sent me a message and he was at our building where the installation was happening, and really good to see the owner of the company rolling up his sleeves and there and in servicing and being present with our communities. Absolutely incredible to see that and feel really good about the partnership.
That's awesome. Love hearing that. If you could give one piece of key advice to senior living operators looking to scale their community sustainably, what would it be?
I think build the infrastructure before you have the business, I think would be the biggest piece of advice that I had. We divested in an asset in 2022 that was our first acquisition as as entrepreneurs, and we took the net proceeds from that acquisition and invested in the infrastructure and the build out of our operations. And had it not been for that seed capital going into to this platform, we would not have been able to sustain. In order to be taken seriously as an operator, you have to have an infrastructure. And, before that, it was me, my home office with a shoebox and trying to figure this whole thing out. And it wasn't until I had the capital to go out and get the office space and hire my first, hire my first regional and get systems and software and all the computer gadgets and everything ready to go. It wasn't until then that I was able to actually be taken seriously as an operator. And then even so in our growth now, where it becomes really, really important for communication between Dan from Cougar Capital and I, is that when new acquisitions are coming, there's a lot of time, energy, and preparation that goes into these. And with new deals in the pipeline, it's really important that we have enough support to transition those buildings successfully. And so having enough cushion to be able to go out and hire staff and being ready and able to deliver, because if you didn't have the resources and the infrastructure in place, we've all seen when things don't go so well. And that's one thing we pride ourselves on, is being prepared to deliver and having enough support and enough resources to actually succeed and deliver. So, bringing it back, I think building the team and the infrastructure before you have the revenue and the recurring management fees is critical. And we see it time and time again, operators that rise very fast and grow. And if you're not reinvesting back into your team and you're not building out enough of a team to support the upcoming growth, it puts a lot of strain and a lot of stress on your back office, and that's where cracks in the foundation will occur. So where we, I think, have done a good job is reinvesting back in the team, reinvesting in the bench strengths of all of our employees, and making sure that we're adequately prepared.
That's awesome. Love to hear that. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions, but I guess any other final thoughts that you want to share with the group before we sign off today?
No, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to come on, talk a little bit about scale. Apologies, Dan was unable to join today, and excited to continue our partnership.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Michael. It was a pleasure to speak with you, and to all of us who joined us, thank you so much. And I will be following up with the replay link so that you can watch it again, share it with your colleagues, and everybody have an awesome day.
Thanks, Norelle.
Thank you.